Love Unraveled. The first time I saw her, she took my breath away. I was sitting on the 7:15 a.m. train into the city, bleary-eyed and clutching my morning coffee, when she stepped into my car. Everything about her was luminous, her chestnut hair tumbling in waves over her shoulders, the creaminess of her skin, the fullness of her red lips. She wore a navy blue dress and matching heels, exuding elegance I hadn't witnessed in a woman before. When she glanced in my direction, I quickly averted my eyes, feeling ashamed to be caught staring. She sat down a few rows ahead of me and I found myself leaning forward, trying to catch glimpses of her profile in the window's reflection. There was something magnetic about her, something that awakened a longing in me. Over the next few weeks, I orchestrated my morning routine around the hope of seeing her. I started taking an earlier train, so I could get a better seat to admire her from afar. I learned that she usually disembarked at 53rd Street Station, likely headed to a job nearby. I drank in every detail, the way she pursed her lips while reading a book, how a few strands of hair would slip loose from behind her ear, the grace with which she moved. One morning, I happened to sit in the seat next to hers. I could smell her perfume, something floral and sweet. It took all my strength not to turn and look at her, our shoulders just inches apart. When she rose to leave, the train jostled and she lost her balance. Without thinking, I reached out to steady her. Our eyes met and she smiled. "Thank you," she said softly. Her eyes were a crystalline blue-green, like sea glass. I could have drowned in them. That brief encounter only intensified my fervor. I learned her schedule by heart, tracking the times she boarded and departed. I discovered we worked near each other in the city. I would happen to walk a few paces behind her in the morning crowds, close enough to pick up the lilt of her voice on the few occasions she was on her phone. I knew it was wrong to follow her, to trace the outline of her body as she waited in line for coffee, to mimize the slope of her shoulders beneath her coat. But I couldn't stop myself. One night, emboldened by too much wine, I waited outside her office building and followed her to discover where she lived. It was a small, tiny brick apartment on a quiet street. Her light was on and I could make out her shape puttering about inside. I stood there for close to an hour, shrouded in the darkness, just watching. I constructed her home life in my mind, what she liked to cook for dinner, the way she relaxed at the end of the day, who she confided in on the phone. Weekends were unbearable. All the hours I couldn't see her, couldn't make sure she was safe. By Sunday night, I was nearly sick with worry and yearning. Monday couldn't come soon enough. The months flew by this way, my world narrowed down to stolen moments drinking in the sight of her. I knew so much and so little about this radiant woman, who had lit up everything inside me. I only wanted to be close to her, to understand her, to share in the particular magic that seemed to emanate from deep within her. My chance came when I noticed she was reading a book I also enjoyed. That Friday on the train, I made my approach. "Excuse me," I said politely, "I noticed you reading one of my favorite novels." She looked up, surprised, those sea glass eyes searching mine. We struck up a conversation, and I was thrilled to make her laugh. When it was her stop, I asked if she'd like to get coffee sometime. She hesitated only a moment before scrawling her number across the title page of my book. Our first date went splendidly. She was clever, cultured, full of fascinating thoughts and opinions. Each new thing I learned made me adore her more. We had so much in common: our tastes in art, our curiosity for the world, our ambitions. Over dinner, she leaned in with a look of deep interest when I spoke, touching my hand lightly now and then. I had dreamt of this for so long. Soon we were officially a couple, and I discovered sides of her no one else got to see. The way her brows knit when she was deep in thought working on a puzzle. The off-key songs she'd sing in the shower. Her tendency to snack late at night, chocolate smeared on her lips. I catalogued every detail and kept them close, precious secrets that bonded us. I quit taking the train so I could pick her up each morning. On weekends, I'd bring her coffee in bed just to see her tousled with sleep, eyes soft with affection. There was an easy rhythm to our days, though at night I grew uneasy if we weren't together. When she stayed over, I'd wake and watch her sleep, the tranquil rise and fall of blankets with her breath, eyelashes fluttering with dreams I wished I could step into. The months rolled by and I began to fixate on making her mine completely. I filled my spare room with stacks of books on proposals, searching for the perfect way to ask her. I tracked her ring size, bought champagne to celebrate, made reservations at our favorite restaurant. The ring was burning a hole in my pocket, my entire being desperate for us to be bound. It was only 2 nights before the big day when things crumbled apart. She'd stayed late at work and hadn't been answering my texts. When she finally arrived at her place, I was waiting in the shadows. She reeked of someone else's cologne when I approached her. Shouting turned to shoving, her eyes wide with disbelief at my accusations. But it was all etched plainly across her face, the smeared lipstick, tousled hair. My world collapsed right there on the sidewalk. How could she do this to us? In the end, she left me no choice. She had betrayed our sacred bond, the traces of him still lingering on her skin. I struck quickly there in the darkness, her neck made such a delicate sound as it snapped. Catching her limp weight, I sank to the ground and wept into her hair. My only solace was knowing we would never be apart now, I would keep her with me always. I gently carried her home, stroking her cooling cheek, and murmured promises that we would be together forever now. No one could come between us again. At last, she was finally, completely mine.